So if you're still chatting, please close the lips. Today you were going to have a quiz. I booted it to Monday a little bit to give us a bit more time in class to cover the topics we need to cover. So today in class we're finishing our notes. So by the end of today you should understand how to do latitude and longitude using 3 pages of your reference table, as well as just in general things about latitude and longitude. Tonight's homework you already have. I gave you it yesterday, and you're finishing that tonight for homework. I think there's 4 questions or 5 questions toward the bottom of the page that you were unable to do yesterday, that after today you should be able to. You don't have lab today, so no need to worry about this, and your quiz is on Monday. So there's 2 note packets you should be studying from. So everything since the last quiz. Our last quiz was on density and rate of change. So the 2 note packets you're studying from are spheres of the Earth and the latitude and longitude notes. Okay, so there should be 2 things you're bringing home with you to study. You have a quiz on Monday. We'll go over the homework, and then you take the quiz, and that's all we'll be doing on Monday. Yeah, Michael.
Can I put the lab away?
You can put the lab away. Yep, since we're not doing lab today. If you already put it on Google Classroom, the Analyzing Drafts lab, you're more than welcome to put it in the cabinet. Does anyone still need another minute to finish copying their homework? Okay, so what you can take out right now are your notes, reference table, ruler, and a pencil. No pens today. Okay, so reference table, ruler, notes, pencil. My computer's been very grouchy this morning, so bear with me if something happens. What's up, Cole? What's up? Yeah. So you are on the very last page of your notes. On the last page of your notes, you can see that we'll be using page 3 of the reference table today. So you can open your reference table to page 3. So very short amount of notes to be filling out. But I would also say that of everything in this packet, this is the hardest. So we saved it for right before the quiz because now you're already good at doing latitude and longitude. What we'll be doing today is just getting a little bit more specific about how accurate we can be. So that's our focus today. Brody, make sure your mask is up over your nose. Otherwise you may as well be on the floor. So open to page 3 of the reference table. If you don't have your reference table out, you will have no idea what's happening. And I will say that if you zone out today, you will be very confused. Very, very, very confused. It is of the most importance that as I'm explaining our first example, you are paying attention to everything that I do, and if you don't understand, you tell me right then. Because we're going to make it a little bit more complicated as we go. And as I give you time to practice, I want you to practice the correct way and not the way you think that it is. So it's important that we stay on the same page today. So we'll be using whiteboards quite a bit. And I'll tell you when to take them out in a minute. But you need your reference table open to page 3 so you can see what I'm looking at also. Okay? So we'll take it nice and slow. This is literally all we need to do today is this section right here. So I'm going to be on the page of the reference table, but we're going to be starting with this first coordinate. So when I write things down on page 3, you can write it here in your notes. Okay? So this is the page that you're looking at. I have a fancy grid system on mine already, but I don't want you to do this to yours because otherwise it gets super confusing. If your reference table is open and you can see 2 pages, fold the other page under it so you're only looking at page 3, not 2 as well. Okay? Now, your ruler is so important today. The reason for that is that some of these lines are straight and some of them are slightly curved one way or the other. So the ruler will really help you with your accuracy. So up until today, we've been doing latitude and longitude to the nearest degree, right? So if I was to give you coordinates, I could say 43 degrees north, 75 degrees west. And that would be coordinates you're used to. With this, you can be more exact. The reason for this is that this is a much smaller map than what we're used to. The other maps I was giving you were maps of the entire world. It's hard to be that accurate when the map is that big. But when we have a smaller map, which is just of New York State, we can be a bit more accurate with our latitude and longitude. So in order to do that, we can go down to the nearest minute. So I'll show you what I mean. So if you look at your note page, and I think the first example I give you is Binghamton in your notes. I'll have mine out too. So you don't need to write this on your page, but just so you can see. So you should see a blank, a degree symbol, a blank, and a little 1, and a blank, followed by a comma. Blank, degree symbol, blank, little 1, blank. So you need 3 things. This is your latitude coordinate. So these 3 blanks are for latitude. These 3 blanks are for longitude. So now on this map, your coordinates are always the same for compass direction. So for example, hemisphere, all my compass directions for latitude will be in degrees north. So if you want to write those in the 3rd blank for the first one, you can. For longitude, the United States is in the western hemisphere, so all the coordinates for longitude on this map will be in west. Does everyone see where they're writing this in their notes? Does anyone not see this and need me to show them? Okay. So you need to fill in the degrees, and then what this blank is right here is the minutes. That's the new part of today, is you learning to do to the nearest minute. This can be very, very, very confusing if you're not paying attention. I promise you, okay? If you pay close attention to me, though, it will make sense, okay? Do not zone out. Look out the window, look out the door, pick your fingers. You got to be up here today. If you are, I promise you, you'll understand it and it'll be fine, okay? But if you zone out on Monday, you're going to be like, I don't remember at all how to do this, okay? So today, we'll learn how to do degrees and then minutes. And so the reason we can do minutes on this map is because it's a tiny map of New York. It's just New York. There's no, other countries. There's no the entire world. It's just New York, the Northwest, a teeny portion of it, okay? So let's get down to business. So the first coordinate, and I'll do this in red. You don't need to color code it, just leave it in pencil. Okay, I'm going to do in red my latitude. So if you look at all my red lines, these are all the latitudes on this map. And you can write this on your page somewhere, maybe on the top right. All of your latitudes on this map are 40s. And they're always north. Okay, so latitudes are always 40s and they're always north. So if you see a number along the outside of New York State and you're not sure what you're looking at, if it starts with a 4, that's a latitude. And I'm just going to change my color. If you see longitudes, they're always 70-something, so 70s. And they're always west. And so you can see my vertical blue lines on this map are all my longitudes. Now these are not drawn in for you, which is a blessing, because if they were, this map would be very difficult to use later. But you can use your ruler and kind of get an idea of where these lines are on your page, which I'll show you. Okay, so let's do the first example together. We're going to do Binghamton. So step one, the first thing that we're going to do is find Binghamton, which is sometimes, once you get the hang of it, the harder thing, because there's a lot going on this map. So find Binghamton and put your finger on it. Okay, if you haven't found it, you can look up on mine, and I found it here, so you can kind of locate it on your page. So I'm just going to put a little purple dot on Binghamton. So step one is find it. We're going to do latitude first. Okay, so looking at my lines, I can see that Binghamton is between the 42 line and the 43 line. Does everybody see that? Okay. Now step two is deciding what's going to be our first number for our latitude. So the rule is this. If my location is between 42 and 43, I always go with the lower number. So my first number is 42. So you can write that in your notes. That's our first number. It's 42 degrees because it's between 42 and 43, and we always go with the lower number. Okay? Now this is the tricky part. Step three. Step three is figuring out the minutes. So we're going to take this one nice and slow. So this whole section is the 42 section. Now instead of using decimals to estimate time, we use minutes like a clock. Okay? So this 42 is actually 4200, and this 43 is actually 4300, and I'm referring to the minutes. Okay? So if this is 42, what's in minutes? Half. I think this whole thing is 1 hour. What's half an hour? Think about it like a clock. What's half an hour? Yes, Samantha?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. So this little dotted line I have here, and you should have a tiny little line. Look at yours. Halfway between the 42 and 43, you should have a tiny little line. The value of that line is 42 degrees, 30 minutes. If I say 5, okay, does that make sense? So what you're saying is you're halfway between 42 to 43. You're just at your halfway point. Okay? So now let's look at this. Binghamton is down here. And I'm going to still try to estimate how many minutes above that line it is, but what would you say this line is? That's halfway between 42 and 42:30 in minutes again. Full 15 minutes, exactly. So this would be 42 degrees, 15 minutes. Okay? And so if I had to give an estimate, what would this line be then? I see people are getting the hang of this now. What would this line be then? 50? Not quite. If it's halfway between 30 and the next highest hour, what'd you say? 45. 45. There you go. So that's 42 degrees, 45 minutes. And so it's like a clock. And so now that we have an idea of kind of, our 15-minute chunks, and we're going back to Binghamton again, it's just above this. So how many minutes do you think you could estimate? And you have about plus or minus 5 minutes here. So you just have to get kind of close. What would you say, Giancarlo? 2 minutes? Yeah, you could say 2 minutes. You could say 3 minutes. 4 minutes, 5 minutes. What you're saying by saying that is you're just above the line, but you're not quite to the 15. The 15 would be about right here. So you're much closer to that line. So you could say, yeah, let's say 3 minutes. Now with these coordinates, you always have plus or minus 5 minutes. So you could have said 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, or you could have said 2 minutes, 1 minute, or just said 42 exactly, and you would still be within the window I'm looking. Okay, so just to recap what we did. Step 1, find Binghamton. Step 2, find which two lines it's between. We see 42 and 43, we're always going to go with the lower number. That's where we got the 42 from. Third step is the hard step. Decide how high up you are between 42 and 43 using minutes. This is our 30. 15, and so we estimated this to be about 3 minutes north. Okay, so now let's do longitude. So longitude is this way. Same steps. We already found Binghamton, so step 1 is done. Step 2, it's between 75 and 76. So what number will we go with? Same rule, Michael. 75, always go with the lower number. So that's our first number for our coordinate. Okay, and now we need to estimate again. So it's the same idea, except these lines are vertical. Okay, so this is 75 degrees, 0, 0 minutes. This is 76 degrees, 0, 0 minutes. So what would this dotted line be in the middle? This dotted blue line between the 75 and the 76. How many minutes would that represent?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. So this is 75 degrees, 30 minutes. And so now let's look at our Binghamton dot again. This is 75, 73, 30, and our Binghamton dot is almost to the 76. So what minutes could we use to tell that we're almost to the next hour, but not quite? Yeah.
75, 9 minutes.
9 minutes would be much closer to the 0, because remember, this would be like 15 minutes. Our dot here is so close to the next highest minute. So it's almost like the next hour is starting. So what minutes on a clock would you look for when it's close to becoming the next hour, like right now?
50.
Yeah, like 50, 56, 57. Yep, exactly. So if this is 45, I would say maybe that's like 55 or so, okay, minutes west. So when you say 55, you're saying we're almost to the next highest line. Let's do one more together, and then I'll have you practice on your own. Does that sound good? Okay, now you get the idea of what to do. So if you want to start kind of looking at them, guessing your answer before I say it, that's a good way to practice before you're practicing just on your own.
And
So,
this one, is it like a range with this also, I'm assuming?
yeah, plus or minus about 5 minutes you want to
Okay.
be within. Yep, exactly. Okay, so let's look at our next one, Syracuse. Okay, so Syracuse, New York. Find that first. And so if you're having trouble finding Syracuse, if you find the Finger Lakes, it's just north of the Finger Lakes. And I'll put a dot on it in a second. Okay, so Syracuse is right here. So now let's look at our first step. Find it, we did. Okay, so now what's my second step? Who can walk me through what to do next? So I find Syracuse, now what I look at? Latitude. Yep, okay, and then what two latitudes is Syracuse between? Which two 40s? Megan?
44.
Good, 44 and 43. That's what Syracuse is in between. Which one are we going to write down, though? Camden? Why do we write 43 down? Exactly, good. So that's our first number. We can write that in our notes together, 43. Okay, now what's the next step? What do we do after we decide, okay, we have 43, now what? How do I determine my next step? Yeah, Giancarlo?
Time.
Good. The minutes, exactly. And so remember, this is 4300. This is 4400. What's this red dotted line that I have on my map? What's the value of that? What do you think? Lily? 30 minutes. So this is 43 degrees, 30 minutes. So looking at our dot, it's kind of just right above the 4300 line. So what do you think you would estimate that to be in minutes? Pretty similar to the one you had already. David?
2 minutes.
Yeah, I think you could again say about 3 minutes for this one. Remember, for your answers, it's plus or minus 5 minutes. So if you thought it was closer to 5, that's fine. 5 minutes would also be good. 2 minutes would be good. You just want to get in that range. Okay, so our latitude coordinates done. Now let's look at longitude. So who can walk me through how I figure out what my next number is going to be? 2 hands? I would like to see more than this. 3, 4. Ava? Okay, and can you tell me which two is it between?
Between 75 degrees and 76.
It's between 75 and 76?
No, 77.
Good. And which number are we going to use?
76.
Good, because it's the lower number. Exactly. Okay, so now we got our minutes. So let's see, 76, 0, 0, 75. Remember this in the middle is 76 degrees, 30 minutes. And so what do you think you could estimate that to be just after the 76 exactly? What would you estimate that to be? Remember, if your hand's not up, I at least want an answer in your head. Right now you're like studying and practicing as we're doing this together. So even if you're not confident, you don't want to share, have an answer in your head to the question I'm asking. How many minutes past would you say that was? Good, more hands. I like what I see. Colston? 15 minutes, you think? So 15 would be like right here, which I would say you would be within the boundary. I would probably say a little less, though. Now that you see the 15 line, is there like a little bit more of an accurate answer you could come up with? Yeah, I think 10 would be a little safer, but I think you would have still got credit for 15, okay? 10 minutes west. So what I would like for you guys to try to do is just do the latitude for the next one, Slide Mountain. Only do the latitude. Don't run ahead. Take it slow and take your time. So Slide Mountain is the little triangle. It's the highest peak in the Catskills, which you could hike if you wanted to. So just get the latitude for Slide Mountain. If you're having trouble also, now's a great time to ask. And let's do this. When you have your answer, take out your whiteboard. If you're having trouble finding Slide Mountain, it's on the right side of the page towards the bottom. Okay, so it should have been enough time for you guys to come up with your latitude and write it on your whiteboard. So if you haven't written it down yet, take the next 5 seconds to write it down. Make sure your answer has degrees, minutes, and then whether it's north or west. No naked numbers. And no need to write out degrees, minutes. You could use the little symbols that I have on the board and like you have in your notes. That's how it would look. Okay? So show me your answers for the latitude for Slide Mountain, please. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I see some 41s and 42s. Both are technically correct for this one. And let's look at the minutes. So if you have 41 written down for your degrees, it should be followed with something very close to like 58 or 59. If you have a 42, you can either have 0, 0, maybe a 1 or 2 or 3. That's exactly where you want to be. Because what you're noticing is that Slide Mountain is pretty much right on that 42 line. Okay? So for this one, 41 or 42 to start off with, I'm just going to write 42 on mine and make it 0, 0. But remember, you're plus or minus 5 minutes. for that one. So you could have 41, 57, 56, 58, 59, or 42, 41, you know, kind of thing. So longitude, next one. So now you're gonna take the longitude of Slide Mountain. So go ahead and do that now. Same point, except now you're looking at the vertical lines. Use that ruler. That is the best tool. Don't use just your eyes. Make sure you can see exactly where it's between. So you're estimating. The number one way students get these wrong is by not using the ruler. You gotta use the ruler. So all the way up right there. So you're kind of halfway between the green and this one. So I think a little less than 50. That's actually the Massachusetts. Yeah, that actually has nothing to do with it. See how Connecticut is labeled Massachusetts? Yeah, the minute ones are those, and then that makes it actually give you 45 marks. Okay. So on your whiteboards, let's see your answers for longitude. Okay, show me your answers. 3, 2, 1. If you don't have your whiteboard up, I will assume that you need me to come help you. That's what you tell me. Or put a question mark up. That would also tell me that when I give you practice in a second, that I'm going to come help you out. You need a little bit more attention. That's fine. Okay, so those of you who have it up, your first number should be 74 degrees, which I think I see. Christian, make sure that's your, okay, 74 degrees, and then our numbers should be very close to the 30, so 25, 26, 27, 28, that sounds good, 30, 31, 32 is good too, okay? So that's exactly perfect, so 74, and about 20, let's say 28. Remember, you could be plus or minus 5 minutes, okay? Now try the next one for Albany, okay? Try Albany next, do the whole coordinate this time. So what I'm gonna do for the rest of these is this. I'm gonna put my answers up here. You're gonna do each one and then check with mine on the board. The best way to get good at these is to try it yourself, check to see if you're correct, and if not, fixing it. Okay, so I'm gonna put up all the answers I have so far, and then in about 5 minutes, we'll just answer those last questions and we'll be done for today. So if you need help right now, I'm gonna come around and see if I can help you out a little bit. Okay, but if you're just sitting there, you're trying the next one on your own, check your answer on the board, and keep practicing, okay? If you need help, just put your hand up, I'm gonna come by and help out people who need a little bit more assistance, which is fine, because this is really helpful. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more because I feel like this is hard to see.
Yes or no? Okay, that's good. That's the concept. Remember.
Which one are you doing? Plattsburgh? Albany, okay. This is where, are you trying to do the 30 line? Okay, so that
okay? Come on, buddy.
The line itself.
Good.
So that's to make it really.
Good.
Good. Understand what we're doing here? On the door.
So
Okay, we'll
all we
find
need
that,
is
that's
this
fine
right
now.
here.
Over to
74
73.
line
Pretty close, so your time's
is
just a
right.
little bit. Let's take a look at it.
So here's the 74 line. You want to
Not here, right?
draw it in.
So, you're doing longitude,
And then 73.
so this 74.
Middle number is equal to 34.
Is it?
Where it is.
Okay, so
Where
here's
it
all.
is.
So you see how this is the 30 line? It's kind of in between, and that's the highest.
Yeah, but
That's
horizontal.
why it's about
Right here. So when you use this part, why would you use this?
time on that one.
Why would you
Yeah,
use
so I have
this?
73 on 5 up there. 30.
Yeah.
Now, 30 line here, if you want,
Now,
this would be 30. Just make sure you're lining it up and you line it up correctly. The 7339 is here, which is a little weird. Can we see that a little bit
so I'm
better?
gonna order you right here. This is 73, 74. Even like that, way more.
7330 and this is 30.
And then one more, which is what? Yeah, so it represents 15 minutes about, right? This is gonna be, let's say, my mistake, that's a half hour. So if that's a half hour, it's a little past the half hour. Exactly. You see how they got 45, and they got 45? So here's an hour, I could line up in a half hour. It's a little past the half hour. Yes, ma'am. 42. Okay, so the next sentence, 73, 42, 73, 43, somewhere around there. Right, I would go for
So that's why I
43.
just changed that to 35.
Make sure that
Okay,
matches.
so in about 2 more minutes, we're gonna start answering those bottom questions. If you're already done doing the practice, start moving on to B, C, D, and E. We're gonna answer them together, and that'll give you your homework. But if you have questions, raise your hand, I'm coming around. So the 7, you might wanna draw this in.
You didn't understand? Copy.
That's 73, this is 74.
You understand it or not?
Does that help a little bit in seeing what there is? And then this is the 7330. Does that help with it? That's 7330. Yeah, 45 would be about there. 70, also 70, a lot of people want that. So this is 70, 45, this would be 50. Okay, so make sure you have the correct answers copied down in your notes. And we're gonna answer B, C, D, and E in about 1 more minute. So just make sure you have these copied down.
So I think I was doing full boards as usual. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes. Okay, so mine, little
Okay, So let's answer those last couple questions. If you didn't get a chance to copy these down, I'll put them back up in a second, but just make sure you have the right answers in your notes. Some of your homework questions tonight are using these examples, so that gives you another opportunity to practice and then check your answer using your notes. So the best way to be good at these is to just practice them. Practice, practice, practice. So let's answer B, C, D, and E together using the page 3 of the reference table. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with B. So B says, will the North Star be higher in the sky when viewed from Riverhead or Old Forge? Okay, so the North Star is also known as Polaris. When I ask if it's higher in the sky, I'm talking about the altitude of Polaris. And so what am I going to use with Riverhead and Old Forge to determine the height of Polaris in the sky? What about those two locations would tell me about the altitude of Polaris? Good, 2 hands, nice. Camden? Exactly. The latitude of these two locations will tell us the altitude of Polaris, because remember, they should be equal to one another. So let's look at page 3 of the reference table. So finding on our map Riverhead, which is down here, and I would say Riverhead is close to about 41 degrees, so we'll say Riverhead's 41, and then Old Forge is about 43 degrees, 45 minutes north, I would say. So if I was at either one of these locations, which one would have Polaris be higher in the sky? Because the latitude of that location is higher. What do you think, Michael? Old Forge, good, exactly. Old Forge has a higher latitude, so the altitude would also be higher, okay? So Old Forge, okay, because it is further north, okay, which means higher latitude. Okay, next question. In which location on this map would a Polaris appear at an approximate altitude of 42 degrees? So there's a place on this map where the altitude of Polaris is 42 degrees because the latitude of that location is 42 degrees. Can anyone find something on this map that has that exact latitude of about 42? We already did this in class. What do you think? David? Slide Mountain, good. Slide Mountain has a latitude of 42, which means the altitude of Polaris at that location would also be 42. Very nice. Okay, so that's our answer to C. Can somebody name a place along the 76 degrees, 30 minutes west line? So 76 degrees, 30 minutes. So you find these two, and our 76 is this dotted line in between 76 and 77. What's a place that's right along in 77, right by the Finger Lakes?
Sierra Forest?
A little bit closer to that halfway point between the 76 and 77. A little bit toward the left. Anyone help Michael out? John Carlo? Ithaca, exactly. Ithaca's right on that 76-31. And we can all cross out E, because E we'll cover when we do our next chapter, which is mapping. So I'm not too worried about E. So your homework tonight you should already have. I'll flip to it so you know what I'm talking about. So this, what I gave you last time, you should now be able to do the whole bottom half of the page, okay? Just make sure you put this on Google by Monday and enjoy gym class. Nice job today.